Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Open Mic with the MVP Marco. I am, of course, your host, the MVP Marco. That is until Sheena, aka Chick Foley, decides to remove me from this show. No, I'm joking. But hopefully, she would never do that. But anyway, yeah, I got another great episode for you, another great guest. But before we get to that guest, I always shout out the Pod Foundation. That's the reason why I'm here. You know, they're the greatest minds in professional wrestling and beyond. I shouldn't even just limit, us to professional wrestling. We do a ton of other different content and things like that. But as you know, it is obviously the Chick Foley show, which I'm a part of. That Sheena, Seth, as well as Jordan. That rounds out the crew. We also have Nick, Extra Cooler, and Matt as well. The Extra Cooler show, definitely check them out. They cover almost like the nostalgia um, side of wrestling. They go back in the day and kind of relive those glory days of the golden era, the new generation, all that type of stuff. So definitely check out the Extra Cooler show. To round that out, not really round it out, but the Turnbuckle Tavern. They're the workhorses of the Pod Foundation. They literally have every type of show, including a AEW show. They have an indie specific show. They have TNA. They cover movies. They do a lot of things. I am actually on the WWE show. It's called the Raw Down every Tuesday at 9 o'clock on Patreon live. Myself and J Bone, who also is a part of the Pod Foundation. He has Coming Down the Aisle, his own podcast. Definitely check that out. He does like a week to week thing where he covers more up to date things. And yeah, definitely check that out and check us out every Tuesday at 9 on Patreon, Turnbuckle Tavern. So let's get to our guest. So my guest this time around, met him very briefly at a chaotic wrestling show in Everett, here in Massachusetts. Very cool guy. Kind of got talking, I think he's he's a photographer. Definitely check out his work at Backward Glances Photography, but his Instagram name is BG Photography. Definitely check that out. Very cool shots. We'll definitely talk about his style of photography and where he started and where he gets that style from. He also has a podcast that's coming out, New England Wrestlecast. Definitely check that out. I know I will. It seems like it's definitely going to be more specific in the region, in our area, in the New England area. So we'll get more information from him when he hops on. Let me bring him on right now. His name is Nate. Nate, how are you doing?
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Like I said, I kind of spoke about it a little bit. We met each other briefly at the chaotic show, Owlmania 4.
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Amazing show. It was great. It was perfect weather, perfect crowd. What I love about those shows is, seeing like, especially like when the outdoor show, the one before that was indoors, but the outdoors ones are great because it's at a brewery. So you obviously have your wrestling crowd around the ring, but then as the night goes on and the matches go on, you start to see like the whole like area just fill up with people. Like it's amazing. Like how like does that ever like capture your eye when you're obviously your photography, it's gonna capture your eye. You have an eye for detail anyway, but does that ever like kind of shock you when you like you're doing your thing and then you turn around, you just see like a mass of people just sitting there watching the show?
So it definitely does. So there's a lot of things about outdoor shows and brewery shows, right? And obviously that particular Owlmania event brought all that together.
Yeah.
So for outdoor shows, it's as the photographer, you're always adjusting settings, right? And that is a blessing and a curse, because it just you need to be more experienced, especially if you are shooting in manual, which in my personal opinion, if you're doing professional photography, you should be. Yeah. But it's constantly adjusting settings, and you definitely notice it because one, you have to, and two, it changes the aesthetic of the match, right? Yeah. They can utilize different things as the sun starts going down, especially when you start getting that sunset. Yeah. It really changes the atmosphere. As far as people in a bar show, one thing about indie wrestling, and I've worked with multiple companies that do bar shows. Chaotic Wrestling down there in Massachusetts. I've worked with NAWA up here in Maine.
Yep.
And they love bar shows because the crowd is rowdy, and indie wrestling crowds are always really good anyway.
Yep.
Like, one thing you hear critiqued a lot when it comes to your televised events, your AEW, your WWE, stuff like that, is people hate it when there's a quiet crowd. And and the wrestlers don't like it either, because the louder you are, the more energy it gives them, and they play off of each other. And bar crowds are always loud.
Yeah.
And most of the time with bar crowds, they're not like wrestling marks, right? They're not diehard wrestling fans. They're like, oh, we're at the bar, we're having some drinks. Oh, there's dudes beating each other up. Like, let's go watch. So they can make, you don't need like a Canadian destroyer or like a Spanish fly to like wow them. Because for them, it's not those big moves. It's just the action. So they can have a little bit more fun with it. The wrestlers can have more fun with it, and ultimately, it becomes it's a different feel, but it's a welcome feel. Yeah, I absolutely loved it, man. And editing those photos was so fun because so I have 4, and I'm sure we'll talk about this when we get more into the photography. But I have 4 presets that I custom made for my company. And so that way I kind of have a look and an image, a motif for my style, and working those into the sky as it got a little bit deeper color and then a little bit darker later on. It was such a fun thing to edit. I love doing them, and it's interesting because unlike doing an indoor show where, like, they kill the house lights, they have their stage lights, I've adjusted my settings, I know what the first photo is going to look like, I know what the last photo is going to look like. Yeah. And so with the outdoor show, and I'm adjusting settings on the fly as the lights are changing, it's a little bit more fun of an editing process because I can tweak stuff a little bit more so I can have a little bit more fun with it. And it's fun to do. Yeah, definitely. Like I said, you have some amazing, obviously, when you go through your Instagram and you go through like all your portfolio, pretty much. I mean, the page is pretty much a portfolio for the work you've done. You have definitely some amazing. I mean, they're pretty much all amazing shots. Like you said, lighting definitely matters in a lot of these. Do you ever, like you said, do you ever try to adjust or try to adapt to what's going on in the ring or the people in the ring, or is that too like manual? Like, do you ever say like, oh, this person's coming out, I gotta get this type of shot, or I gotta get this type of angle? Is that how you work, or is it just like 100%, man? So if I get really nerdy about photography, like, how much are you gonna know? Like, do you know camera settings and stuff? Or I mean, so here, I was going to bring this up. It was a very long time ago, but I worked. When I worked at Best Buy, I did work in the digital camera section. Sure. We sold SLRs and all that stuff. Yeah. So my knowledge is old stuff. It's probably. I mean, a lot of it's advanced. Still. The terms are still pretty simple, and they're all about the same. So when I'm shooting wrestling, I shoot at 1/1000th of a second shutter speed, and which is incredibly fast. I have a really nice camera, which I'm thankful for, and it helps me capture these great shots. And usually my ISO is sitting around 10 to 16,000, depending on the brightness and lighting of the area. Yeah, right? Those are action shots, and that is how I get my I stop motion on a dime. Like, they could be flying through the air, and that picture is going to look crisp as though they're sitting still. So that's kind of my sweet spot. F-stop 2.8, 1/1000 shutter speed, and then like that 10 to 16,000 ISO. So the reason I bring that up is to address the question you asked me. So during intros, right, I have to adjust for that very similarly to the way that I would adjust for that outdoor show. They drop lights for intros. They don't use the big lights that will light up the whole ring. Every wrestler has their different color settings. Yep. And the more I do it, the more I learn like who has what color settings. And so usually I will drop my shutter speed down to 1/500 because, they're not moving so fast. So I don't need that fast shutter speed to not get blur. And then because if I crank that ISO too much, it's just going to be a washed out snowy picture and it's not worth it. So I'll drop that shutter speed and then I'll capture those slower moments during the intros.
Yeah.
So things like that, things with intros, if it's a wrestler just standing in the ring doing a promo, I'll keep that shutter speed lower. That way I can afford to have that ISO a little bit lower and capture a crisper shot. There are some things you sacrifice when you're running low light, high speed, and high ISO, even with all of the amazing AI cleanup features that Adobe has given us now.
Yeah.
You still do lose some of it. So I try to bring back from that as much as I can. But yeah, I mean, you're always on the fly, and that's part of that is, it's experience, it's skill, it's know-how, it's knowledge, it's knowing how to work your camera. It's also the functionality of the camera. So I mentioned 3 settings: the shutter speed, the f-stop, and the ISO. I love my camera because I don't have to ever go into my menu. I have a wheel on my camera for each of those 3 settings. So I'll hold my camera with one hand, and all 3 of them are reachable by either my index finger or my thumb. So I can adjust my settings literally as I'm holding my camera taking shots. And Canon did a great job with the placement of the dials on this camera. Shout out to Canon.
Yeah.
And to be able to work my camera with one hand, either, sometimes like I'll grab the ring post and lean to the side and take that shot because I get a cool angle. And it's super nice. The camera works great. And, if I look at my viewfinder and I'm like, oh, it's a little dark, like I can just dial that ISO up a couple notches and keep taking shots. And then it's again, but it's all experience. It's experience. Yeah. It's knowing what you're looking for. It's knowing where the angle is going to be. There's a big part of it that's having an eye for it. And then obviously knowing wrestling helps too. Like you can watch them do their moves and watch them do the setup. I probably should have asked you this before pre-show, but we're not worried about breaking kayfabe here, right? Like
I don't know.
We all know wrestling is scripted, right?
Yes.
So as you watch them and you get to know a certain wrestler's move set, you can tell when a move is being set up. And if you know the move set well enough, okay, they're facing this way, but I know that when that move executes, they're going to be facing this way. So somebody who doesn't know what they're watching or doesn't pay attention to those details might wonder why I'm running to the other side of the ring. But that's because I'm prepping for the shot coming in 10 seconds, not the one I'm getting right now. And again, a lot of that is how many times have I watched them perform? How many times have I seen them set this move up? And most of the time, because it's choreographed in such a way that it's theater, it's art, it's even a dance in some way.
Yeah.
And so usually the timing for most moves is just about the same every time because their opponents also have to know what to expect. So if you're watching them prep for it and you're paying attention to those little details, it gives you the opportunity to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
As opposed to something like a UFC or something like that, where it's, actual combative fighting.
Yeah.
Like they aren't setting it up in such that way because that it's a different game. Right.
Yeah.
But it's all about that experience, man. There's nothing that makes it easier than having the time at ringside and paying attention and knowing what you're looking for.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was actually, as you were talking, I was actually thinking about, like you said, you have to, when they're in the ring, they have to time their moves. And for the most part, like you said, MMA really, you can't, if you're you kind of have to watch what they're doing. Like you have to see their shoulders, how their shoulders are going to move, how they're, how they're
right.
You can kind of anticipate what they do, but you don't know what they can come
sure. Well, I'm sure it's like any sport, right? Like, yeah. I don't watch much outside of wrestling. Like wrestling is the only quote unquote sport that I really like. But if you've got somebody who's a football guru, you know what I mean? You're going to be able to look at a way that the offensive line is lined up on the line of scrimmage and probably be able to guess what type of play they're running.
Yep. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's certainly not unique to wrestling, but football in some ways, and some people would argue that it's in all ways, is also very like choreographed, right?
It's scripted. We know this.
Like,
It's all scripted.
like the defense and the offense aren't choreographed together,
Yeah.
but the plays in that playbook, they're choreographed.
Mm.
They are, you know, whether you have a reverse or whether you're running out or a handoff or I don't know football that well, but you know, all those things. So if you are photographing football or if you are just doing football analysis, again, you can look at the players on the field and be like, okay, they're doing this, or at least that's what I think they're going to. That's most likely what they're going to do.
Yep.
And again, same idea with wrestling. I'll give you an example. Paris Van Dale. Relatively recently added a new move to her moveset. She does a split stunner. And it was a brand new moveset, and a handful of events ago, I had never seen her do it before. And then she did it. And the first 3 times she did it, I was behind her. And it wasn't a bad shot. It looked cool, but like I didn't get because I love capturing the facial expressions because it really tells the story and shows the emotion. And it was behind. And it's funny because I had messaged her on Instagram and I was like, one of these days I'm going to be in the right spot for that damn move. And the very next event, I was right there, right in front. And I caught, and again, you can see it on my Instagram. You've probably seen it. The most amazing shot of her, like midair, full split, like emotion on her face, getting ready to give that stunner. And it's learning the move. It's learning the setups. It's okay. She just did this or he just did this. So I know what's coming next.
Yeah.
And I know where to stand. And it definitely, it adds to the photos because you're able to capture that emotion. You're able to capture the feeling. And then the shots look cooler.
Well, yeah, definitely. You actually kind of brought me to my next question.
Sure.
How much goes into actually, working with the wrestlers on the show? Like, do you have a, like, not every single one, obviously you're not going to be able to speak to every single one, but are there certain ones that you have conversations with on how they want to be photographed essentially, or is that more of like a after effect if they're doing like a photo shoot or something like that? Do you have any talks before they hit the ring at all, or is that
not really? They're pretty busy at shows. And I try and get set up, and I got to make sure that all my batteries are charging and stuff like that. Also, there are some that will come to me and tell me like maybe one thing here or one thing there. But I try to make it organic as much as I can. The one thing I will do is when I show up, no matter which promotion I go to, I show up, I talk to the promoter, and I'm like, all right, because I have I take a lot of photos. So, and I work for 4 to 5 different companies, and there's a 6th one that occasionally comes in now and then when they're local. And so, I mean, I have a backlog, man. It's a lot of photos. I do 15 to 35-ish thousand photos per event.
Jeez.
And so, that takes some time to get through, obviously. So when I show up at an event, I'll go to the promoter and I will talk to them and I'll be like, okay, what are shots that you need right away? Right? Because, you're paying me to be here. You're paying me to do this work. I want to get you something quick that you can use to promote what happens tonight. And they'll give me a rundown like, so-and-so is going to win this and this person's going to come out and this and that. And I'll get a list of 3 to 5 or 6 things that, okay, these are the shots I want tomorrow. And that, I'll use this to segue a little bit. That is typically all I know. And that's by choice. And the reason is because I'm crew, I'm the photographer, but I'm also a 30+ year wrestling fan. So I still want to be able to be that little kid that loves wrestling at the side of the ring. You know what I mean? So I don't look at the match card results. I don't know who's going to win. I'm sure you've probably heard when it comes to WWE, like Michael Cole doesn't look at the results ahead of time. And Ricochet's girlfriend, what's her name? The ring announcer.
Samantha Urban.
Yes, Samantha.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she doesn't either, right?
she doesn't know because they want that surprise because they're still wrestling fans at heart.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes I need to know, right? Because like if a promoter comes up to me and says, "Hey, he's winning the belt tonight, make sure you get a good shot." Okay, I know who's going to win the belt, right? But if I can avoid knowing the results, I try to because I want the emotion. Like I still want to have that fun because there is that part of me that is still that little kid that loves wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, and I warn you, man, I can talk a lot. Also, you know, podcaster, I tangent like crazy, but so by all means, it's your show. Cut me off.
No, keep going.
But I was having a conversation with Aiden Agro and Queen Ariel at the last Chaotic show, and I was talking about how because I turned 40 this year, so and a lot of the wrestlers are early 20s, right? So I'm twice as old as some of these people, and I was telling them how. So my first ever wrestling event. And I think this was one of your questions, so maybe we'll just lead into this. My first ever wrestling event was WrestleMania 9, the Toga Party.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah,
how lucky are you? Jeez.
It was on my 9th birthday, and it was WrestleMania 9. So I have literally grown up with WrestleMania. And you know, when you're a little kid and you're watching wrestling, these men and women, obviously back then mostly men, but these men and women, they look like gods in the ring. They're live action comic book characters. They're larger than life, right? And that is one interesting thing once you are backstage, and especially once you're older than all of them. Some of them look like kids, right? Yeah. But the thing that I love, and actually, Aiden Agro said that he loves the fact that I'm still able to have this passion, even being like kind of you watch how the sausage is made, right?
Yeah.
And but still being able to fully enjoy it because I was telling him how like I hang out with you guys, I chat with you guys, I get to know you guys, and in the locker room, like it's person to person.
Yep.
But when I'm out there and I'm knelt down with my camera and I'm taking photos, like I'm instantly transported back to being that little kid watching wrestling. And even though I'm older and bigger than some of these guys and I'm twice their age, I like in that moment, I'm still like that little kid watching these live action superheroes.
Yeah.
And even with all those other details that come around, they once again become larger than life and every match is still very magical.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that, man. And it's one of the reasons I do what I do. It's one of the reasons why I make sure that passion and that magic is portrayed through my photography. Yeah. Because, you know, not only do I want to display these amazing athletes and what they do, but I want people who look at my photos to be able to feel my passion through my photos. Yeah. And I'd like to think I do that pretty well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I was going to say, like, you know, as you're speaking about, you know, WrestleMania 9 and remembering like, you know, how they're kind of like, these guys are like real life, like superheroes. I mean, nowadays they're, you know, they don't have like they're not as flashy. Obviously you have like Seth Rollins and that type of stuff.
Sure.
But back then, like I still mark out when I see like if I throw on Peacock or something like that, and I watch like I just recently watched Macho Man versus Ultimate Warrior at SummerSlam, and it's Ultimate Warrior was like he's still one of my favorite. I mean, just the look he was a superhero. Like he looked like a superhero. The face paint, you know, the physique of a superhero. You know, the colors, the tassels all over his arms and his legs and stuff like that. Like. That was my guy. Like that, like he obviously, you know, liked Hulk Hogan, you know, loved Macho Man. He's my first favorite. As soon as Ultimate Warrior like his music hits and he comes like speeding down the ring and he's just lifting people up and like it's, you know, as a kid you're just like this. How does it get any better?
Oh, for sure, man. So like I said, my first event that I watched live was 9. I definitely have obviously gone back over the years. Speaking of Macho Man, I think one of my favorite matches was probably the WrestleMania match with him and Ric Flair.
Oh yeah.
Where Flair got so bloody that it dyed his hair red.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of my favorite Macho Man matches. But no, talking about the larger than life thing, one thing that we saw a lot in the 80s, and it kind of started to die off a little in the 90s, was the fantastical supernatural characters, right?
Yes.
And and one thing I'm super happy about that is gone is that not every one of them has a job anymore.
Yeah.
Like it was a repo man and a trash man and an IRS. I love Erwin R. Shyster, but
the
like
profession era, when they had like all the
yes, the profession
NASCAR
era
drivers. There was
my God, Bob Sparkplug Holly,
farmers, the Godwins. You had the farmer guys. You had
but I do love the fantastical characters. I like that they're more special now, right?
Yes.
Like I think you can maybe kind of see it, but that's Bray Wyatt's moth.
Yes,
on my chest. I don't know if whoever watches the video. But I've got his death moth tattooed across my chest. I did that after he passed away. And because my absolute favorite, man, because he very well could have been the next Undertaker.
Oh yeah.
And he was incredible on the mic. He had such a presence. The Wyatt family was probably, in my opinion, one of the best things they've done in the last decade.
Oh yeah. For sure.
And I feel like those characters are more special when they aren't every single character.
Yes.
And we have a little bit of that in indie. Thinking of a character like that, not so much supernatural, but kind of that same mysterious motif. We have that with Mortar.
Yes, I was about to actually say Mortar. Yeah.
He does the lights out. He comes out, he's kind of that dark character. And we definitely have a little bit of that mystique and that mystery and what is this person's origin, right? What is this character's origin? And I love that in that character. But for the most part, and again, everybody else they're out there, they're competitors, they're participating in a sport. And so it makes that character more special when it's kind of a unique thing to them or one or two of them.
Yeah, definitely. And I was gonna say that like that's one of the he's one of the the guys that I always looked out for because he's always a guy. Like for me, that was always a guy that I remembered going to these shows. Like once I seen his name on there, I'm like, oh, all right, I know it's gonna be a good match. Like his name sticks out, his presence, like his like the way he looks. Sticks out as well. He almost got kind of like has that like old school, like larger than life kind of.
Oh, very much so.
Like,
very much
stuff like that. So I appreciate. Like I said, it's a lost art. I think too in wrestling. Like you kind of said, there's not really many like mystical creatures and stuff like that. With not with Undertaker, but with like the Wyatt family. And when he passed away and that like they weren't doing it anymore, you could in WWE more specifically, you could kind of feel it.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you could feel like there was no like obviously we love wrestling, we love watching the in-ring stuff, but growing up, in the 80s and the 90s, we were always accustomed to that like either one or two like supernatural character that kind of took you out of the actual wrestling spot of it. And when he did pass away, I mean, for me, I felt it. I felt like WWE, it was missing. Like they needed that, like they need that supernatural character. Like obviously Alexa Bliss isn't there, so she's not, doing her gimmick anymore. So that was completely gone. So like,
well, at least we've got the Wyatt Six. So
yeah, exactly. So like, it was basically like they, there was no more. It was straight wrestling, like straight wrestling, straight angles, promos in the ring, that type of stuff. They didn't have that, like that mystique and that mysticism to it. So I'm kind of glad, they brought it back with Bo Dallas and the Wyatt Six, and I'm excited that they brought my son loves it. When he sees like Chad Gable in the ring, he like perks up automatically because he knows they're coming out to do something. And the lights. We actually went to Monday Night Raw the last time they were here in Boston. It was like a couple months ago.
Yeah, it was relatively recent. Yeah.
Yeah, we were there, and he, obviously, lights go out, so we got to see it in person.
Yeah,
he was freaking out. He's like, "Oh my god!" Oh, and he's like looking all around, and obviously they started surrounding him and stuff like that. But that's what as a kid, I'm glad he's getting to experience that because we got to see it a lot more when we were younger, but he gets
Well,
to
see,
see it now, and he's going to be accustomed to that when he gets like older. Hopefully, he continues with it. But
right, it's funny you mentioned that, right? Because talking about that mystique and like even something as simple as the lights going out, right?
yeah,
I remember I was really young, and they had a house show here in Portland, and so we went to the house show because Maine is small, so we don't get televised. I mean, we had a Monday Night Raw up here once.
yeah, oh yeah.
And I was there, and Stone Cold was there. Like, it was during the Attitude Era, so it was a great time for it to be here. But I went to a house show, and the Undertaker was there,
Awesome.
but they didn't kill the lights. Because it's just a house show. And I remember, like, man, like, I was bummed. I was like, because I was waiting for that, like, the whole arena goes dark, and but they don't bother with the bells and whistles with house shows.
Yeah,
or at least they didn't back then.
Yeah, that's right.
But and so definitely as a kid, because you think about, you take a kid to go see a Marvel movie, right? And when you've got Cap and he's, bouncing his shield like a pinball machine, or all these other characters doing these crazy things. And again, to them, that's what they see when they watch wrestling, because, they don't like, we're not jaded. We're just older, right? Like, we know, exactly. And they don't have that knowledge. So for them, and unfortunately, it's why so many kids get hurt when they try and emulate what they see. But it's magic to them, when they see these things. And there's something like my kids, about half of them really enjoy it. My daughter, we have an IWTV subscription, and my daughter always watches the indie stuff. My middle boy absolutely loves it. He's kind of locally famous here in Maine from Limitless Wrestling when Aiden Agro turned on Danger Kid back in December, January, earlier this year, late last year. My boy went to give him a high five, and Agro flipped him off.
Oh,
and like, I caught an awesome photo of it. It was on IWTV, and that really, like, that was a choice he made. But it really solidified the heel turn. Right. Like, you flipped off a child. So that solidified that heel turn. And like, I'm good friends with Randy Carver, the owner of Limitless. And like, I took the picture, I edited it up, did my thing to it, and sent it to him, and he loved it. And he shared it all over social media. So that picture of my boy getting flipped off became like, and Agro shared it everywhere, because obviously he wanted to enforce his heel turn. And then the next Limitless event, when it was Agro versus DK, we custom made my boy a t-shirt that had the F from the Get the F Out. And it said F Agro. And awesome. And he was sitting front row, and Agro saw the shirt and was in character giving him crap. And my boy gave him the double middle finger, which again was also live on IWTV.
That's great.
So
That's awesome.
When people find, especially like when the wrestlers who were aware of that and they find out that was my son, they're like, "Oh my God, that was your kid!" Like, that's so cool. Like, that was such an awesome moment. And so yeah, they've grown up with it. I've got pictures of my kids. I mean, my daughter, who is 13 and 5'7".
Wow.
I have pictures of her when she was like 4 feet tall with Ace Romero. And then I have a picture of her now, and she's taller than Ace Romero. Like, so they've all grown up with it, and that was, again, that's why my boy tried to give Agro a high five, because, he was 7 at the, just turned, a very young 7 at the time, just turned 7. So, getting the understanding of face, heel turn, like what just happened, like that. He loves wrestling, but he's not quite there yet. But I have pictures of Agro and DK that were, and also, just to be clear, I do want to make sure I acknowledge, I'm aware that DK is Amber now. And that's amazing. Super proud of her. Fully respect that. I'm only referring to her as DK because that was the character when it happened.
Yeah, definitely.
I want people to know what I'm talking about, but I want to make sure everyone knows I am not trying to be disrespectful in any way whatsoever. But I have pictures of Aggro and DK with all of my kids. And again, same idea. It's as they were growing up, they're different ages, and it's watching them grow up with wrestling. And MSP was my jam, man. Like, again, I don't know. There's a video version of this that goes out too, right? So like, okay. So on the inside of my bicep here is a custom drawn MSP tattoo.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, a Limitless Wrestling regular, Jamie the Sign Guy, custom drew this for me. This was about a couple months, about 5 or 6 months before COVID. Custom drew it for me. I went and got it tattooed. And no, man, MSP is fucking awesome, man. They're great. And Aggro in his solo career is doing awesome so far. But back to the point. The kids all grow up with it, man. They love it.
That's great.
It's so much fun, man. It's such a great thing. It brings so many people together. And sure, there's versions of wrestling that, like, you know, maybe if you're going to go watch a Nick Gage match, you know, maybe don't bring your 7-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know,
that's true.
You know, or like, you know, going back to like old school ECW where like Paul Heyman was shouting about Big Dick Dudley.
Yeah.
You know, maybe keep him away from some of that stuff. But it's such a cool thing to be able to sit down like with a family that loves wrestling. You know, my wife loves it too, and she comes to shows as often as she can. And speaking of Mortar is hands down her favorite wrestler.
Oh yeah, he's awesome.
And you know, and so it's cool to be able to share this thing that I've loved for over 30 years. With my wife and my kids and have them love it. Yeah. Hopefully as much as I do. Either that or they pretend to just to make me happy.
Like I said, I like, you know, obviously with Chaotic, you can definitely bring, you know, obviously, you know, children are welcome. Like you see kids all over the place and they're as in tune with it as the adults and stuff like that. So it's really awesome. And you did mention that you do other, you know, organizations. I seen like, you know, Rad Pro. Which is actually Acefield Retro.
Yep.
As well. Yeah, he's part of the Turnbuckle Tavern. You know,
nice. Acefield is an awesome dude.
Yeah. So I mean, I've had him on this show before I interviewed him. He's a really awesome guy. And he said, you know, I asked him questions about, you know, him being an announcer and all that stuff, and would he ever get like involved in like an angle? So I'll ask you, have you ever done that? Or have they asked you to like get involved in anything or? You know.
So they've never directly asked me to get involved. To be a ring announcer, to be a commentator, to be a ref, to do all of those things for the most part, it's my understanding, and I might be not fully correct here, but it's my understanding that you still need to go to the wrestling school. Oh, there are still things you have to learn, right?
Yep.
Obviously as the photographer, I don't need that. So really, really quick, I'll make this long story short. So I have lost close to 100 pounds in the last 18 months. Oh, wow. I am at 40 years old. I'm in the best shape of my life. And I bring that up because I have thought all summer about going to NEPWA and training, because I'm not getting any younger. Yeah. And it's something I always wanted to do. My parents always said no. And then I was a heavy set guy for a long time.
Yeah.
And obviously when you see wrestlers on TV, like they're fucking supermen. Sorry. I don't know. Can we swear on here?
Yeah, no, you can swear. Yeah.
All right. So like that is obviously discouraging. And then, so I just never got around to it. And I was talking about it and thinking about it. And actually I spoke with Adam Booker, who owns Eastern Wrestling Alliance in Maine, one of the companies that I shoot for. And I was talking to him about, man, if I go through the training and I get trained, wouldn't it be cool to have an angle where like I'm doing photos, but I have a dummy camera and like one of the wrestlers bumps into me and breaks my camera. And then I jump in the ring and take him down, like, you know, like, cause it would shock everybody because everyone knows me as the photographer.
Yeah.
So that was something that I kind of thought up, but ultimately what happened was, you know, between my full-time job, my shoot job,
Yeah.
and then the wife and the kids and all the photography and videography that I do, and all the editing and everything else, plus trying to have some sort of non-work life outside of that. Like
Yeah.
I'm a huge gamer, and I love all my other stuff there. It just, and plus going to the gym. Like I already go to the gym 3 or 4 days a week. So if I
Yeah.
had to add a wrestling training that was 1 to 3 days a week and also an hour and a half from my house,
Yeah.
ultimately what it came down to was I don't have the time. And if
Yeah,
something
yeah.
ever happened to me in the ring, like I have a good job, I'm lucky to have a great job with great benefits. But if I hurt myself outside of the job, they
Yeah.
wouldn't cover that, and I'd be screwed.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what I am doing is in about 2 weeks, NEPWA does this awesome thing. It's the Wrestling Fantasy Camp.
Okay.
And you go down and you're there for like 5 to 6 hours, and you go in, you get in the ring, you take a couple bumps. It kind of gives you a taste of what training to be a wrestler is like.
Yeah.
That I am doing
That's
because I
awesome.
want to at least try it once.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it would be a lot of fun. There's been a couple little things here and there, like occasionally if, and I don't want to give away too many secrets here because I don't want to get in trouble. But if something needs to be communicated to me, right? A wrestler might come up to me and like grab my shirt, and like
Yeah.
it will look like they're hollering at me, but they're
Yeah,
telling me what they need to tell me.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Or like if I'm in the way, not like in like a get out of the way, but like
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want you to get hurt, move.
Yep.
Sometimes, like, if they can tell me, they'll verbally say something to me.
Yeah,
Or like they'll like nudge me, or they'll act like, but they obviously want to be respectful of me and obviously respectful of my gear.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So it's
Yeah.
always very much like push me, but you're not really going to push me, but I know what wrestling is, so I know to react.
Yeah.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So that's the closest I've ever gotten to being involved.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just kind of like, you're there on the sideline.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Normally, yeah, like you said, normally they'll like tell you to move. I think like it wasn't the last. I think it was the Owlmania. I think it was Owlmania 3 we were at. That was the one that was indoors.
yep.
And I
Yeah.
think
That was my very first event with Chaotic.
Oh, really? Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
they. I think it was like I forget who was. It was Mortar.
Mortar
like
and Danny Miles, the one
Yeah,
with the one with the bottle shot at the end.
Yeah, there was that, and then they like near the end. I was sitting near the entrance, and they
Yep.
did like a spot where they went over the
Yes.
guardrail.
Yes.
But we were sitting, we were in like literally in the way. So he like he walks over and just goes like this to us, like
Right.
waves his
Right.
hand, like move out of the way. We all knew to like get up and move out of the way. That's professional. I will say that I was at a while ago, WrestleMania. Which WrestleMania was the second one that was in New York. No, actually, it was Rock Cena. It was either 2013, I think. Yeah, I think it was 2013. We went to a
And was
PWS
that
show.
long ago? God,
Yeah.
I'm so old.
Yeah, it was PWS Pro Wrestling Syndicate. They
Yeah.
usually do during that weekend. They do like it's called the Super Card, PWS
Sure.
Super Card. So it's like a 2-day event. They'll do like a Saturday show, and then that WrestleMania Sunday they'll do like one in the afternoon. So forget how they did it. Actually, no, it was Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday would be WrestleMania. So we went to the Saturday show. The end show was it was New Jack's retirement match.
Okay.
New Jack, yeah. I mean, I don't think he retired after that, but supposedly his retirement match.
Dude,
It was
old
him.
wrestlers are like old rock bands,
Yeah.
man. They have like
Yeah.
11 retirement tours.
Yeah, first I was scared because I thought they did a signing at the beginning, and I thought he was going to ask me to do something in the match because I got a picture with him and stuff, and we're standing next to each other, and he's like, look, guy's like real like top hat, like really nice suit, like he looked like didn't look like New Jack at first. So like
Right.
we get finished taking the picture, and he's like, hey man, he's like, do you work? Do you do this? I'm like, oh no. Cause I was like kind of muscular back then and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, you work? Do you do that? I'm like, oh no. And he's like, oh, all right. So I thought he was going to be like, hey, do you want to do a spot in my match for that? Which I would have been like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But anyway,
Right.
he's fighting Necro Butcher. That was the main event. And he didn't warn us that he was going over the guardrails. We were sitting in the first row. Obviously they're fighting in the ring. They light tubes, staples, all that stuff, blood all over the place. he proceeds to bring, they're fighting in front of me. It's like me, my friend's girlfriend, and then someone else. She's not a really photographer, but she had a Nikon camera, so she's taking
Sure.
some really good shots. And he comes over to us, he throws freaking Necro Butcher right over, like didn't tell anyone to move, just like literally threw him over the guardrail. Everyone like the front row, you just see stand up and just like run to the back.
Well, I mean, also New Jack's
man.
old school, right?
Oh yeah, he was
so
God,
he comes from that era of kayfabe.
Yeah, no, he was just like, he didn't warn anyone. Everyone just
Right.
got up and ran. There was blood all over the place. We couldn't sit down because there's blood all over the chairs, like plastic chairs. So their blood was all over and stuff like that. I kind of think he did it on purpose because he was going to ask me anyway. He's probably going to say, "Hey, we're going to do something in front of you. Do you mind doing something?" But he was probably just like, "You know what? F it. I'm just going to let this. I'm just going to go in front of these people and just do it anyway." But yeah, that was a difference. Like Mortar was just like, "Hey, move, guys." New Jack was like, "No, just throw Necro Butcher on our laps and like continue on with the match." But actually, you kind of brought up something before I went into my spiel. Family, like like you said, work. Your kayfabe versus shoot life. Like, how do you balance that? Like, is there a balance? Does it do they bleed into each other? Like, how does
there's one way I balance everything that I do, and it's my wife. Seriously, like and she's actually like outside of my soundproofing, so she can probably hear me talk about her. Yeah, no, she's great, man. I would not be able to do this. So I work full time for the Postal Service. I work Sunday through Thursday. And like this Thursday as an example coming up, like I work 8 to 4:30, and then I have to go straight from work down to Malden for the Chaotic show. I'm not even going to get to come home. So I'm going to leave for work at 7:15 in the morning on Thursday and not be home till almost 1 in the morning.
Wow.
And between the two of us, we have 6 kids.
Oh, wow.
So I have 4 that are mine. She's got 2 that are hers. And at any given time, there's 4 to 6 kids in this house. And, she's super supportive, man. Whether it's me being gone for 12 hours for a back-to-back or like when I did that Rad Pro EWA, I was in Amesbury for Rad Pro at about 3:00 that afternoon, and I wasn't home from EWA. Actually, I got home really late because one of my cameramen for EWA was in a car accident on the way home. He's okay, but he was right behind me and got rear-ended. So I pulled over to the side of the road to make sure he was okay. I didn't get home till almost 2 in the morning that night. So no, man, she carries this house on her shoulders, and I'll be down here editing. I'll be down here because I do, like I said, I do photography for 5 or 6 different companies, depending. I am the videography producer for EWA. So not only do I have the photos, but I have 3 different cameras that I'm working with, and I edit and I do multicam videos, and I do the matches. I do their promos. I do all their YouTube ads and all their TikTok and Instagram reel ads. So thankfully EWA is only like once every 6 weeks.
Yeah, no, right?
I love Adam Booker. Adam Booker actually gave me my start, which I'll go into a little bit after I finish answering your question here. But yeah, it's, I can sit down here, she'll make dinner and let me know when dinner's done. She'll bring me down coffee. She'll bring me down, my 0 sugar Dr. Pepper, which is addicting as all hell.
Yeah.
And I mean, I couldn't do it without her, man. I couldn't, not without neglecting the kids, or neglecting other responsibilities. I would have time to maybe shoot for 1 or 2 companies. But it's thanks to her that I even got this. So, so that, I think that answers the question, man. And that's not me being sappy or me saying that because she's in earshot. It 100% is thanks to her. I couldn't do it without her. And that segues into, I wouldn't have this without her. And the reason I say that is because, I, as a fan from the crowd from about 2016 to 2018, did some photos for Limitless. Love Limitless, repping them on my shirt here. And Randy liked my photos. It's how I became friends with Randy. I was podcasting back then as well. He was a guest on my show. And the wrestlers, they also liked my shots. I didn't have my nice, fancy, expensive camera. I didn't have the know-how, but I did what I could with what I had, and they enjoyed my shots. So since then, I have been through a couple divorces, and just life being crazy and everything else. And you lose stuff, you lose hard drives, computers fail. Fast forward to after COVID and going into 2022, 2023. 2023. So I meet my wife, and we start dating, whatever. She's a high school teacher, and she lived up north and I live in Portland. And so she's like, I'm going to get a job at a school that's closer to home, because she ended up moving in with me. And so she ended up getting a job at the same school that Adam Booker teaches at.
Oh, wow.
And at the time it was a big secret, but he was resurrecting the Eastern Wrestling Alliance. And so she's like, hey, I work with this old wrestler guy, Adam Booker. I was like, holy shit, you work with Adam Booker? I used to go to Stevens Avenue here in Portland and watch him wrestle. Yeah. Over 20 years ago. And so she's like, yeah, he's starting EWA back up, but it's a secret. Don't tell anybody. Yeah. And I was like, does he need a photographer? I will do it for free. So he ended up adding me on Facebook. And I messaged him and I sent him some of my old Limitless shots, which were super low res and looked like shit and whatever. And I was like, I can do this. I will do it for you for free. If you take me on my word, I promise you will like the product. And he said, okay, come do it. And awesome. My first event was their first event, which was EWA Homecoming, which was November of last year. And instantly, everybody fell in love with my work. I was very, very fortunate and very humbled by how much everyone just was blown away by my photos. I did the next event for them in February. It was actually 2 events back to back. We did a hockey show, we did a wrestling show after the hockey at the Civic Center here, or Cost Insurance Arena, whatever. And then there was another EWA show the next night. And then it kind of happened, man. I don't know how, but it just kind of happened. I ended up getting contacted by Chase Del Monte of Chaotic, and he was like, hey, I'd like you to photograph for me. So I actually reached out to Adam, and I was like, I don't know, because Adam and Chase go way back. And I was like, man, I don't know if you put in a good word for me, but I appreciate it. And he was like, I didn't say anything. He's like, Chase came to me and was like, who's your photographer? Wow. And he's like, your work speaks for itself. And then it just blew up within a couple months. It was EWA, Limitless, Rad Pro, Chaotic. I was shooting for NAWA here in Maine for a little while. Yeah. And then I mentioned another company, Big Time Wrestling, which occasionally will do shows in Massachusetts. I shoot for them as well. And it kind of blew up out of nowhere, man. And now at least once a week, I'm traveling somewhere for a wrestling show. It's very rare that I have a full weekend off.
Jeez. That's insane. That was actually going to be my next question. How'd you hook up with Chaotic?
Right place, right time, man. Right place, right time. I got really lucky. And it got to the point, we talked about Mortar. So I'll give him a shout out here. He's an awesome dude, man. Super friendly, super supportive of my work. And that first Chaotic show I did, Owlmania 3, I had photographed Mortar at EWA a couple times at that point. Yep. And I had done a BTW show, if I'm getting my order right. But Danny Miles was there, and it was my first time meeting Danny Miles. And I was at my table setting up my gear, and Mortar was there, and Danny was there, and he introduced us. And Mortar looked at Danny. He goes, if you want photos in the New England area, this is the guy to get. and like things like that. Like it's just, and that's what it was, man. Word of mouth. Like I had, and now they see me, like they know I'm going to be there. But like before I became a regular face, it was that like whenever I showed up, they would always be like, they're like, oh, awesome. Like you're photographing tonight. I know you're going to make me look good.
Yeah.
So, and that just, it just spread like wildfire, man.
That's what you need. I mean, definitely. I mean, work speaks for itself. Like I definitely said, like I think I catch myself always going to your page, just checking out, what new pictures you put up and stuff like that, just to see what's going on. Obviously, I still see pictures, popping up from the from Owlmania 4,
right?
Pretty nice, and it kind of, like I said, kind of brings me back to like, holy crap, this guy's like amazing at these, like, and like especially like the nighttime shots.
Right.
They're really awesome. And like I said, I'm doing the same thing at, this upcoming show. Definitely checking out those shots and stuff like that.
Yeah. I just started putting up the pictures for In Deep Water. The Rad Pro shots from Unstoppable Juggernaut are about to start going up. And I've still got 3, 4, after Thursday, I'll have 4 events that I'm still working on. Like it keeps, the workload keeps getting smaller as it keeps growing.
Yeah. Another question for you would be, obviously, you kind of said, you kind of, busy pretty much like from, front to back, end to end.
Right.
Do you have any other like hobbies and stuff like that
I'm a gamer.
Obviously you said gaming and stuff like that, but besides gaming, is there like, do you have any time for like movies? Are you?
I mean, like
music, that type of thing.
I mean, I love a little bit of everything, and I know that's a really easy, boring answer. No, gaming is definitely my other passion. Actually, this year is the 20th year of World of Warcraft, and my 30th year playing MMOs. I've been playing MMOs. I started with Ultima Online in 1994.
Wow.
So that's been a huge portion of my life. Movies, I wouldn't say that I'm a movie buff. I definitely enjoy movies. I have a few favorites. But I'm not like, I'm not one of those people. Like, I'm not going to have a giant like DVD Blu-ray collection. I don't have movie posters and stuff like that. Same with music. Like, I love music, man. Life without music would be so empty. And I have my favorite band of all time, Avenged Sevenfold.
Nice.
I have the A7X tattooed on the back of my neck. I have seen them live 27 times.
Jeez, that's definitely a fan.
I've driven as far as the MetLife Stadium in Jersey to see them live.
Wow.
But I mean, I love everything, man. I love country music. I love rock. I love metal. When I'm editing, when I'm working, when I'm driving, it's either music or a podcast that is in. So there's definitely other things, that I enjoy and that I love. As far as passions, I'm really big into D&D. I love tabletop gaming. And now I just sound boring. What else do I do? Exercising, man. I love to cycle. I'm big into cycling. I love trail riding. I like mountain biking. I'm really big into fitness these days, going to the gym, working out and challenging myself in that way and pushing myself a little bit harder. And that just becomes another addiction. It's one of those things, but I try to enjoy most of what I can. I love stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is a big thing I enjoy. So,
any favorites? Who's your go-to guy nowadays? Or actually, nowadays.
I'll say nowadays is a little bit harder. I'm not too up on current. I just kind of know what TikTok and Netflix show me.
Okay.
I think as far as active comedians at the moment, Anthony Jeselnik.
Okay.
Hands down.
He's great.
As far as of all time, George Carlin.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I mean, you can't, I have
favorites.
So I have 2 memorial tattoos on me. I have the Bray Wyatt one that I showed you earlier, and I have a George Carlin one on the back of my leg.
Oh, really?
So on the back of my cap, it says George Carlin R.I.P. and then it's the 7 dirty words you can't say on TV tattooed down the back of my leg.
Awesome.
Yeah, Carlin, man. I was 11, 12 years old. I got the You Are All Diseased album from my mom for Christmas.
Love that. Love that.
And for anyone that's not familiar, he starts off, he opens up, the crowd cheers. He's like, how's everybody doing? And everyone cheers and hollers. He's like, good. Well, fuck you.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want to make you feel at home.
Yeah.
Dude, man, I would give almost anything for him to be alive and well and to have political commentary on what the hell is going on these days.
There's a few people, like, you can definitely me and my wife, we actually, oh my god, not even, maybe like last year on Amazon, they have I'm not sure if they're still up, but I think they had pretty much all of his stand-ups on there. And we watched, was it You Are All Diseased? I think was that the one where he talks about what people, everyone basically nowadays everyone's like washing their hands and or is that
germs? Yes. Yeah, that was You Are All Diseased. Yeah,
like we were talking about, like he talks about like what's going to happen when a super virus comes along and no one's prepared for it. It's like we just looked at each other, we were like, holy crap, that actually did happen. Dude,
the craziest, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but the craziest George Carlin story, and not a lot of people know this, he recorded an album on September 9th and 10th in New York City in 2001. He was at a comedy club or a venue in New York, and he recorded on the 9th and 10th of 2001 September. So we all know what that date is.
Yeah, exactly.
He recorded an album, and you can look this up. This is 100% factual. The album was going to be titled I Kinda Like It When a Lot of People Die.
Oh, geez.
And look what happened a day later.
Yeah, that's insane.
So that is the album that got scrapped. They ended up re-releasing it later. I want to say like 2016. It is released now. I think it was around 2016. But that was the album that got scrapped, and then he recorded Complaints and Grievances.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
wow.
And a lot of the material is the same. Like, even if you listen to Complaints and Grievances, he talks about starting with everything that happened on 9/11.
Yeah.
And then he goes, all right. He goes, now I want to get to the show that I was going to do before all this happened.
Yeah.
So a lot of what's on that album is from Complaints and Grievances, or vice versa. But yeah, I read that and I was like I got chills when I read that the first time.
That's crazy.
Because I was like, man, could you imagine? If
you release that like right out.
Oh my god, if it released the day before as opposed to recorded the day before.
Insane. Like his commentary, like I said, you can watch pretty much like not like all of his stand-ups, but like when he starts like in the 90s and stuff like that, early 90s, and he starts talking about like the country and all that stuff, like literally all that stuff is like
it still holds true. It stays current. He did kind of get dirty old man a little bit towards the end.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he definitely did.
He got a little bit. I mean, he was always vulgar, but he got a little bit more like really vulgar. But yeah. But no, Carlin, man. And since we're talking about Stephen Lynch was another big guy that I loved, the singing comedian.
Yeah.
I am very much into shock comedy. I like listening to stuff where it's like Tim Minchin. I love Tim Minchin. It's just I like stuff that is a little bit edgy, a little bit it's gonna make people be like, well, wait, what did he just say?
Yeah, I was talking to my wife about that with because back in the day we reason why we started like talking to each other, because we're like chatting back and forth, and I forget how this came up, and we were talking about like Opie and Anthony.
Oh, and yeah,
she's like, oh, I listen to Opie and Anthony. That's how I was like, holy crap! I was like, a woman that listens to Opie and Anthony, that's right. Definitely has to have a good sense of humor.
Stephen Lynch was on Opie and Anthony.
Yeah, no, he was on there. And the obviously all those comics, Bill Burr.
Oh yeah,
Kelly, Louis C.K., Rich Voss, Jim Norton, like all those. But another person I wish was still alive today was Patrice O'Neill.
Yep.
Because even Joe Rogan says if he, like, a lot of people are, oh, where do you think he'd be right now? And Joe Rogan was like, probably the #1 podcast in like in the entire world. He's like, I wouldn't be where I am. Like if Patrice O'Neal was alive today doing
Right.
podcasts, he was like, I'd be like not even close to him as far as like content. Cause he was another like guy that probably, you know, I would say like they really wouldn't be able to exist nowadays because of the way they think. Like George Carlin, the way he thinks, the way he thought was like it was almost like it went over most people's heads because it sounded like preachy at some point.
I think Carlin,
yeah,
if Carlin was still around, Carlin could do it, right? Like he would be like Eminem. You can't cancel him.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, he's already like grandfathered in pretty much.
Right, but there will never be a new Carlin.
Oh yeah, no.
It's too, and you know, there's something to be said for language being more respectful and stuff like that. And I certainly don't want to go down this direction, but there's something to be said for that, regardless of what side you fall on.
Yeah.
But because of the nature of comedy, comedy has taken one of the biggest hits from modern culture.
Yeah.
And you really have to like they were always walking a thin line, and that line has just gotten thinner.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's, and again, for better or worse, depending on where you stand. And I'm not here to give an opinion on that one way or the other, but, so, and I think the way that that language and culture and everything is changing, I think we're still, especially us older people, are still learning and adjusting. And like, there's part of us that are like, well, we're set in our own ways. And then there's part of us that are like, okay, how can we maintain our identity?
Yes.
But maybe do things a little bit like I'm a 90s kid, man. Everything they tell me that I can't say, I was shouting into a headset on Xbox Live.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
so it's one of those things, man. You grow up and you mature a little bit, or you try to. You hopefully do. At least you pretend to. Man, I'm sure there's some shit I said on a podcast 10 years ago that I'm glad is not out there anymore. But the world was very different 10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. You know? It's what even doing this like show, like obviously I don't get into any we're talking wrestling, so it's nothing political, but like even when it comes to like I have a lot of like women on the show too that I interview, and like I'll ask about like, you know, women's wrestling and where they're at, that type of stuff. And I don't want to me when I'm having those conversations, I don't want to come off as like, if I give my suggestion on women's wrestling, I'm the man. I know what's right, what's wrong.
Right. Like, you don't want to mansplain women's wrestling to them.
But that's in my own mind, thinking that like, oh my god, am I saying like they should be doing this and not this type of thing? So that's why I kind of like chalk up the question and let them answer it and that type of stuff. So like I said, I'm from that era. I'm from the late '80s. All 90s, so like,
we were from the bra and panties matches. And, it's a very different world. I'm so happy for the women that are in wrestling and how much different of a culture it is for them. And now they're allowed to be out there and be athletes and put on that show and be as regarded as being as talented as their male counterparts. And that's awesome for them, man. And there's so many amazing women, even like in just my local or our local indie scene. You've got Paris Van Dale, you've got Shannon Levangie, who's unfortunately on the shelf at the moment due to an injury. You've got Caroline, who's awesome. You've got Livia. You've got, I shouldn't have started naming names because now I'm going to forget names. Selena Hakate is coming up. Like
Becca is another one, right?
Becca, and again, exactly. I'm gonna Ashley Vox, Megan Bain. Like she's not local; she tours the world. But like, and anyone who I didn't mention, I apologize. I it's just on the spot. But like, so many talented women wrestlers, and in indies and AEW, like you get those intergender matches, and they're really able to put themselves on display and show what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I mean, I have two daughters. They're not super into wrestling. They pick and choose who they're kind of in and out of it. But as a father, and watching them watch wrestling and getting to see, like you said, these strong women be on TV and performing at at a level that, I mean, obviously I couldn't do, but even a higher level than most men in the ring. Like a lot of these women,
yeah,
like,
sure.
and them being able to see it, and being able to, like, mimic, their strength, and obviously my
Right.
wife's strength as well, like having that at home as well as
Yep.
seeing that on TV and stuff like that. It definitely, it definitely, makes me happy that, they're not having to sit down and watch, mud wrestling or any like strong ladies matches like you said, or,
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it was entertaining, and the Attitude Era was there for a purpose, and it was very 90s.
yeah, I would never
But
like
I'm
watch
glad that
that.
it's not the thing anymore. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we were. I think me and my wife I was watching like some. I forget what pay per view was, like one of the Attitude Era pay per views, and they were like obviously putting women through tables and freaking. It was
Right.
like
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
my
Mae
wife
Young
watching this,
going
she's
through a
like,
table.
yeah, she Mae Young. That's the most famous one there too. Is but he my wife was just like, can you believe like we used to watch
Can
this
I
stuff?
can I have like 2 minutes?
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
definitely.
All right. All right. But yeah, no, Mae Young and going through the table, and like, man, it was definitely a different time for wrestling.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was like I said, we were just watching it going, we can't believe we actually left the stuff on TV at the time. It
Right?
was like
Oh my god. And
pretty
then
insane.
like the Edge and Lita, like the
Oh,
sex in the middle of the
yeah.
ring.
Yeah, that was the that like that type of stuff. I'm like, geez,
That was the
that would
beginning of the
never,
end of, yeah.
you could never do that nowadays. I
No,
mean,
you certainly
even now with like people thinking like the move to Netflix for WWE is like it gives them like a gateway to do this. I don't even think you'll see it on there like at all. It's like obviously it's Netflix and you do what you want, but they still have people that they might not have sponsors as in commercials, but they will
right.
have sponsors throughout the show.
Right.
And it's a lot bigger as a company as it was back in the late '90s, early 2000s.
Right. Oh,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
Well,
So
also to go back to what we were talking about earlier, with watching it with our kids and our kids growing up with it, right? And I think there's something to be said for the content being a little bit edgier, as long as it's respectfully edgy.
Yep.
But it's they can't go full Attitude Era again. We're not going to get Attitude Era 2.0.
No, definitely not.
So, which is good, right? Because a lot of things that people don't realize is you go back and you look at the Attitude Era, and it was entertaining as all hell, but the wrestling sucked.
Oh yeah, it was literally just like it wasn't really good wrestling. I mean, there was a few guys and gals that try to put on wrestling matches, but it always ended in a brawl or some weapon was being used. It was
always interference, always and again, it was entertaining, but you didn't get that. And I'm sure someone's going to disagree with me, and that's fine because it's all a matter of opinion and taste. But you didn't get that technical wrestling that you have now.
Oh, definitely not,
never, and you had your standouts. Like obviously Mysterio comes from that era.
Yep.
A certain high flyer who did a headbutt that I won't mention. Was also really talented.
Name redacted.
But fuck that guy. Like there were some, and then as you get into the end of the Attitude Era, going into the aggression era, the Hardys and Edge and Christian and stuff like that, and they were really a big part of that transition. And that is when the wrestling got technical. That is when it got like it was a lot more like The Rock and Austin and all, like, iconic. No one works the mic like The Rock does. But everyone wants to give Cena shit for being like 5-move guy. And same with Lesnar. But how many moves did The Rock do? And he's accredited as being one of the best wrestlers of all time. He wiggled his foot when he kicked. He did the people's elbow. He did the rock bottom, and he did the come get me. And other than that, they were pretty generic wrestling moves. It was the way he presented them.
That is very true.
But it's the same with gaming, man. It's like people will love their game and then hate on other games, not realizing that those other games are basically the same as their game, but it's just because they have the passion for that game, they don't see that.
Exactly.
They see past the flaws because they want to love that, but they expose those flaws and everything. And it's the same idea. People love The Rock and hate Cena, and it's like, but a lot of the criticism you give to Cena is also true for The Rock.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like you said, you pick and choose what you hate and love. That's how it pretty much goes. And that's, I mean, one of the great quotes I love from I think I say this like literally every episode when we talk about wrestling. Is Eric Bischoff said, wrestling's a buffet, right? You should be able to go in, pick and choose what you like to eat, and not force anyone else to like what you eat.
Right.
You take your plate up, you pick what you like, you go sit down at your table, and you enjoy your meal, and let someone else do the same thing. They might not pick the same foods you're picking, or the same type of wrestling, we should say, different styles, but they're going to enjoy their own version of wrestling, what they like. They might like the theatrical side of it. You might like the technical side. You might like the, I don't know, you might like the very, very technical side, like
For
the
sure.
like the ZSJs and the, like I said recently, I think what was it, Wrestle Dream? They had that match. I forget which one it was, what pay-per-view. But Bryan Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. I thought that match I thought it was the best match on the card. Other people would be like, what the hell are you talking about? But that was a very technical, like wrestling mat type of match. But I thought it was the best one on the card because I've, as an American watching wrestling, I'm not used to seeing that type of thing unless you watch like New Japan, and WXW and Rev Pro, that type of stuff. Like if you're into that, you'll see it, but you don't see that type of like mat wrestling every day. Like it's usually like punches, kicks, elbows, and stuff. They're like wrist locks, leg locks. They're on the mat most of the match. Are like joint manipulation, doing all this stuff. And I was fascinated by it. I loved it. Most people would say that's boring as shit. They do not want to watch any of that. And those would be the same people that watch MMA.
For sure.
And they hate when they get on the ground and do that. But that's also a match within itself. That's also a fight. It's a fight for a submission. It's a fight to defend from that submission. So like most people be like, oh, you'll hear it if you ever watch it. Like, this is boring. The bat trying to like, the guy's almost in a guillotine choke, like already pretty much getting ready to lose his life. And you have fans yelling about how boring it is. But if you, you get down to the science, it's good.
I think Bischoff's quote definitely sums it up. And it's a buffet. And there's a quote in video games. So it's a video game or a game made for everybody is made for nobody. And I like that. And I've been saying it a lot lately. I'm a big Dark Souls fan.
Yeah.
I love my Dark Souls. I don't know if you're a gamer at all, but like Dark Souls. Okay, so Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, stuff like that. Yep. And they are known for being incredibly difficult.
Oh, yes.
They are unforgiving. They don't have difficulty settings. Like there is no easy story mode like there is in a lot of games these days.
Yep.
You get what you get and you play it the way the developers intended.
Yes.
And that doesn't sit well with some people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so that's really where that quote comes from is that. And it's a game made for everyone is made for no one. And gaming is for everyone, but not every game is for everyone.
Exactly.
Because once you water it down enough to where it's so generic and bland that everybody can enjoy it, then we all have our individual passions that are specific. And and if you water a game down so much to where it's not going to upset anybody, then it's also not going to make anybody excited. It's just going to be generic.
Yeah.
And, like my wife and some of the kids love Stardew Valley. They love their farming sim.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
Yeah.
But I don't want Stardew Valley to change.
Exactly.
I don't want Stardew Valley I don't want it to become something for me because there are plenty of games for me.
Exactly.
It's something for them. So we all love this umbrella that is gaming while accepting the fact that there are some games that are for us and some games that aren't.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the same idea with wrestling. Wrestling is for everyone.
Yeah.
But each individual match, you may not like a slow match. You may not like the high flyers. You see a lot of old school wrestling fans who will give people like Ricochet and Matt Sydal and stuff shit.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, they're just stuntmen.
Yeah.
Or they're like, but that is a specific type of wrestling for a specific type of fan.
Yep.
And not every match needs to be for you.
Yeah.
And because you need a broader appeal. And I think that quote, it aligns with Bischoff's quote where it's a buffet.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important. You have to have variety because you don't want, whether you're a fan of high flying, whether you're a fan of submission matches or mat wrestling.
Yeah.
If every match is that way, it's going to wind up all looking the same.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And that would be boring as hell, whether you like it or not.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's true. Even my son, he's way into like Minecraft. He loves Minecraft. I don't see the appeal in it at all whatsoever, but he talks to me all day about like, everything. Like, I like that it's because with Minecraft, it's a code game essentially. Like, like if you ever look at it, there's actually like a back door to that game where you can actually code in, like, actually you can, because we used to do workshops. I used to work for a place that did workshops, and they would set up all the computers and they would run Minecraft, but they would have the kids like create their own Minecraft like via code. It's a very easy way to like get into coding, but most people don't know that. So that game's even more boring than what it to me anyway, because it's like, oh my god, it's a coding game. But he loves it. He loves like every aspect of it. He likes to play like action games too. Like I started, like, he loves all the Lego games. I started getting into them because he started playing them for some reason. They're just fun to play. Yeah, like the game that I'm getting into now is Black Myth.
I looked at that. If it wasn't for the War Within launching tomorrow, I probably would have picked it up. But
I was afraid it was gonna be like Dark Souls, like really hard. But it's like they're not as not crazy, because it actually brings me back to Ninja Gaiden. When that first came out, the creator was like, a lot of people were very upset that they couldn't beat the game, and the creator was like, that's not the point.
That's the way I intended it.
That's
right.
why I created the game. Like,
exactly.
That guy, I'm not sure if he's still alive or not, but that dude like legit looks like a guy from the Matrix. Like, wears all like he's like a rock, like a complete rock star, like shades, leather
nice,
long black, like, and he's just like, a lot of people, like even me, like I couldn't get past the first boss. Like the first boss on that game was hard. Like imagine the next bosses after that.
They were all hard back then, man.
I was like, jeez. And he's like, I think one of
the hardest games I think of all time was probably like Ghosts and Goblins.
My god.
So I mean, we could talk for hours, more hours about that. But it's it's one of those things, man. And a lot of the stuff that we talked about tonight can be covered by that. Like, I think if there's anything to take away, it's that people need to do better at saying, this isn't for me, but I accept that it's there for people. This is for me, and I'm going to enjoy it. Like, and even to bring that to wrestling, AEW, man, AEW is such a hard pill to swallow for me because I got to tell you, I don't like it.
Yeah, a lot of people.
I don't like it, man. And it's hard for me because there are so many amazingly talented people there. And I won't give any spoilers for anyone that hasn't watched it yet, but there were two big people that just showed up at their event in London. And that guy, not the legend, but the younger dude that showed up in the UK today or in London or whatever, I photographed him at a Limitless show. Like, he was at my very first Limitless show fighting Matt Sydal or Evan Bourne. And MJF, who's a huge name at AEW, MJF was the very first ever Limitless Wrestling champion. And I photographed him. Chris Statlander, Danhausen, who's back on the indie scenes now. Going into WWE, Christian Casanova is Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah, Carmelo Hayes. Yep.
And like he was a Limitless Wrestling champion, and I photographed him and I met him. But so many of those people are in AEW, and I tried, and but the thing is it's a different type of show.
Yeah,
and that's perfectly okay. And I love that it's there for the people who enjoy it.
Yep.
But there are so many hardcore fanboys out there who are, man, like AEW is the best, WWE needs to go away, or vice versa. It's like, why do either of them need to go away? Like, watch what you like, let other people watch what they like.
Yeah.
And just let it be. Because that's the thing, you know, back to that quote, it's a buffet. Yeah. And we are so fortunate as wrestling fans that wrestling is back on the rise.
Oh yeah, nowadays, yeah, of course.
Indie wrestling is massive. You know, and thanks to things like IWTV and Twitch, you know, indie wrestling is everywhere.
Yeah.
And granted, WWE is still a little bit more restricted with their contracts, but a lot of the AEW guys and girls, they can be in AEW and still do the indie circuit. And like, that's so great for fans.
Yeah.
But just take it in and love what you love, and just, you know, let that other stuff be there for the people that enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, as wrestling fans, as content creators, you know, we have such a boon of things to view and look at and enjoy and use to create our own stuff to distribute for people. It's an awesome time, man. You know, the world's been pretty crazy for the last 5 years, and it's nice to have these things that are fantastical and over the top, and the people who make them are filled with passion, and then we can turn around and make stuff that we're passionate about.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. It's not so bad every once in a while.
Yeah, no, it isn't. Like I said, nowadays you should be, as a wrestling fan, you should be like, there should be no complaints.
Right.
There's literally, I mean, we kind of beat this, you know, dead horse, but it's like, there's
it's
literally
it's a message to get out there. Stop bitching.
No, there's literally there's something for you. Like,
right.
If WWE doesn't have something cool, go to AEW. If they don't have something, watch TNA. If they don't have something, GCW.
Yeah.
NJW.
Or
go to the indies. If none of those like bigger promotions don't have anything, go to your local, like, watch your local wrestlers, like,
and support local wrestling, man. And I don't even say that as somebody who gets paid by local wrestling promoters. I say it as a fan, man. Support local wrestling.
You should, definitely.
They are the stars of tomorrow. You know, and it's just it's so good, man. It's intimate. It's personal. It's
great.
You know, when you go to a WWE show or an AEW show or whatever, and like somebody looks in your direction, like that's a cool feeling, sure, right? But when you're in an indie show, they look at you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you are there. You know, I'll share one more quick experience. I know we're going a little long on time here.
Oh, yeah.
But I was at a chaotic show, and it was Danny Miles versus Trigger the OG for the title match. And there is this really awesome guy. He's a regular. He's at every chaotic show. I believe it's his son that he's there with. And he was, you know, harassing Danny Miles like you're supposed to do to the heel.
Yep.
And Danny reacted because Danny is great at interacting with fans.
Yeah.
And he was giving Danny shit, and Danny took Trigger and put him up, because this guy was front row, and he put him up against the barricade and slapped the shit out of his chest, like over and over and over and over. And then he looked at the guy and pointed at him, and he goes, "This is your fault." And like, that's such a cool thing, you know? Hilarious. And that right there is 100% exclusive to indie wrestling.
Yeah, exactly.
That's never going to happen in AEW. It's never going to happen in WWE. That is an indie wrestling spotlight.
Yeah.
And that is a credit to Danny and Trigger for thinking on the fly and, hey, this fan's interacting with us. Let's give him a moment that him and everybody else will remember. Let's make him part of this moment. And that is exclusive to indie wrestling. That's 100%.
Yeah, that's definitely what it's all about.
And it's such a great thing. If you live anywhere, it doesn't even matter. Like, you know, we're both New England dudes, you know, but there are amazing indie promotions all over the country, and I'm sure all over the world. You know, if you are a wrestling fan and you've never been to an indie show, you owe it to yourself to go. I mean, tickets are usually like $15 to $30. They're super cheap. It'll be the most fun you've ever had. As far as wrestling is concerned, it's such a rush. A lot of them don't do barricades. You're right there in the action. And I can't talk it up enough, man. And again, it's not just trying to promote a business that I work for. It's as a wrestling fan, as an indie fan. If you are a wrestling fan and you've never been to an indie show, you owe it to yourself to go.
Oh yeah, definitely. I had my interaction at Mania 4. I think it was the opening match. I forget who was it? It was the what was his name? The Deacon. Was it the Deacon? No, it wasn't Deacon. It was like the guy that he wanted everyone to praise him. Why can't I think of his name right now?
The miraculous Milo Mira.
Yes,
I fucking love him, man.
Yeah, so he walks out, and I'm like, I stand up, and I'm like, I did like the, he's like, you better pray for me. He's like, you better praise me. Or something like that.
Yeah.
I was the only one that stood up and did it.
Milo Mira is awesome, man. So he, I don't know how long you've been watching Chaotic, but he used to be in a tag team, and it was God's Greatest Creation.
That's where okay.
And it was him, and I forget what name he went by, Armani Chaos, but I forget the GGC name. But so he was Brother Steven. And again, there was, I apologize to him. I forget what his character name was in the GGC. But because they broke up very shortly after I started shooting for Chaotic. Okay. And then he turned, so Brother Steven, Milo Mira, turned on him and went into singles competition, and has Jeriel as his valet, his manager, his pastor. Yeah. And man, when he went through that transition of rebirth as the miraculous Milo Mira, he has done so much with that character. And another big shout out to him, another wrestler who's incredibly supportive of my work. Always happy to see him. Super friendly dude, and amazingly talented in the ring. Milo Mira is awesome, man. You're gonna enjoy it. He's in the Fatal 4-Way for the New England Championship this Thursday.
Right. Yeah, I can't wait.
Again, I don't look at results, so I don't know what's gonna happen. So as somebody who works on the inside, I don't want to say like anything that might imply that I know what's going to happen, because I don't want to know. Yeah. But as a fan of Milo Mira, I hope he wins. I mean, everybody in that match is incredibly talented. I believe it's TJ Crawford, Milo Mira, Trigger the OG, and Aaron Rourke. And I love Aaron Rourke as well. But with the rise that he's been on since his singles competitor or singles competition run, I would love to see Milo Mira take it.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, yeah, I can't wait. It's gonna be a good show. Like I said, I'll be there. It'll be my son. He'll be his first ever Chaotic show. So hopefully he enjoys it.
It'll be a lot of fun, man. We'll have to get a selfie together and put it up to promote the podcast.
Oh yeah, definitely. That'll be great. That'll be awesome. But last question for you before we head up. I always ask this at the end. What do you see as far as the future of your brand? Like you said, you started the podcast. You're still doing photography. Is there going to be more to come from Nate and his endless set of skills?
Right. Oh man, that's a bit much. I appreciate that, but one day at a time, man. I'm going to give you the Bill Belichick answer.
Yeah.
We're just focused on the next game.
Yeah.
I love content creation. And I love creative processes. I love creative works. I love, taking, like I said a little bit earlier, like I love taking in something that people are passionate about.
Yeah.
And then developing my own passion from that, and then creating something else that somebody else might be able to be passionate about.
Yeah.
With wrestling, For those that don't know, when it comes to indie wrestling, there's not a lot of money in indie wrestling.
Yeah.
So the people that are in there putting their well-being on the line multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day for your entertainment,
Yeah.
are doing it because they love it.
Yep.
They're not doing it because they love the paycheck. They're doing it because they love it. There is passion there. And for everyone that works around them, very similar can be said.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thankful for what I do. I'm thankful for the financial backing that I get for what I do. But at the end of the day, I do it because I love it. And if I can inspire anyone with my photography, that's a win. Whether
Definitely.
I inspire them to come watch wrestling, or I inspire them to become photographers themselves, that's a win for me.
Yeah.
And this is a long-winded version of an answer to your question. So now with podcasting, I don't know if anyone, I've told some people I'm going to be on this show. So hopefully some of them tune in. If there happens to be anybody who listens, who ever heard any of my old podcasts, thank you and hello. I ran my own podcast network for about 8 years. We did wrestling, we did movies, we did an interview podcast. And it was a lot of fun. And unfortunately, life and divorce and COVID, just everything went crazy. And, and I loved creating. I was very fortunate to do a live podcast in Anaheim, California at BlizzCon for the 10-year World of Warcraft anniversary. Now we're on 20 years. I got to do a live podcast. The podcaster that inspired me, Scott Johnson, the owner of the Frog Pants Network, who did the longest running World of Warcraft podcast of all time called The Instance. He was my inspiration to podcasting, and he used to do, before COVID, a yearly convention in Utah called Nerdtacular. And I got to do a live podcast episode there, which was really cool. So it was only a matter of time before I got back into podcasting. And I was like, I'm more deeply involved in wrestling than I've ever been. I have the opportunity. I have the hardware. I don't have the time, but we'll pretend I do. And I have the networking. I have the connections. So let's do this. Right.
Yeah.
And so I workshopped some ideas. I talked about it with my wife. I'm like, all right, what is a time slot that I can do that won't disrupt our family any further? And it works out perfect, right? Monday nights.
Yeah.
Because so I can talk about the events that just happened.
Yep.
I can give previews for the events coming up the next weekend. It worked. We were able to fit it into our schedule. There's a lot of ideas, man. Like I said, I do videography for EWA as well. And so I'm videography producer and editor for them. I could sit here for an hour, man, and list off things I'd love to do. In as far as wrestling and content creation. As far as maybe a hint of what's to come, I mean, it's already announced, obviously, the podcast. Beyond that, I mean, I gotta at least let that idea simmer for a little bit before I try and throw something else on there. But you never know, man. Follow me everywhere. Follow me on social media. I'm on Threads. I can shit post a little bit on Threads, so maybe don't follow me there. Follow me on Instagram, and I'm sure you're going to ask me this beforehand, but it does before we end, but it does kind of tie into the question of what's next. Follow, I'm Tenacious Warden on Instagram, Backward Glances Photography for my photography stuff, New England Wrestlecast for the podcast that's coming up in less than 2 weeks. And who knows what I might announce, man. I'm very much throw something at the wall, see if it sticks. If people like it, I'll make it work. Same with the photography. It's what I told my wife. I was like, I'm going to give it a year. If it's not profitable in a year, I'm going to stop doing it. Because at the end of the day, I do have my wife and we have 6 kids, and we do have to run our life. We have financial responsibility at home. So ultimately I can't do anything that's going to cost us too much money.
Yeah, exactly.
But thankfully it only took photography about 3 months for it to become a net gain. I'm very thankful for that. And I appreciate, the opportunities that everybody's given me. Yeah. So who knows, man, whether it's gaming or wrestling, probably wrestling. There might be something, man. But there's always some little ideas festering in here.
Oh yeah.
I think content creators, like, we're always thinking about what can we do next? What's our next big thing?
Yeah.
But for now, all of my extra time is going into getting that podcast up and running, and making sure that that's a success. I miss being behind a mic. This is my second time in 3 weeks guesting on a podcast.
Oh, nice.
And it's so fun to be on a mic, man. I love to talk. I'm sure you can tell.
Yeah.
And I love to talk about things I'm passionate about. I love to share that passion with other people.
Yeah. That's why
so
we do it.
It is, man. It is. It's a good excuse to hang out with friends and to make new friends.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But also it's a good way to maybe open somebody's eyes to something that they might not have been aware of, or give them a different perspective, or and it helps spread. I mean, you can't say spread like a virus anymore because of fucking COVID.
Yeah.
It helps spread this love, and if people find my show and support me, then they're also going to find wrestling and support that. Yeah. If people, find your show and support you, then they're going to, support all the things that, the network that you record under. And it becomes very much handshaking. Yeah. You help me, I help you, we help them. And ultimately it makes this little network, metaphorically and literally, that we're involved in, it makes it a little bit stronger and a little bit bigger, which allows more people to be exposed to it, which again, it's a chain reaction. Yeah. And, if that's all, and whatever little bubbles may come out of that, and ideas, and, I'm always workshopping stuff with the promoters of like, hey, maybe we can try this next show. Hey, maybe we can do a photo booth and do like professionally done photos with fans at shows. And there's always these little things that are popping in my head of, hey, what about this, or what about that, or how can we do this? And I think that's for all content creators, man. Everyone that has that creative mindset of what can I do next, you're always putting ideas out there, right?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I have no idea. But I hope it's something fun, and I hope it's something that people like.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm super excited for my new podcast. I'm excited to be behind a mic every week again. I'm excited to get people on. And it's another venture, man. It's another venture of excitement and passion and fun that I hope opens more people's eyes to this lovely little thing that we call indie wrestling.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we'll, like I said, we'll end it there. You, like you said, you already kind of gave all your plugs and stuff like that. You were amazing. Like I said, you're very, like I said, I created the show to because I always am invested in, the people that I, follow on social media. And I'm always curious as to, why they started, how they do, what their process looks like and all that stuff. And, you pretty much hit every topic that I can think of as far as, as far as that person is, but definitely would look forward to, speaking again at some point.
Oh, for sure, man. I'll have to have you on my show.
Thing going.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
If I can interrupt you for one moment, I know you're doing the closeout. The one thing I did mention all my stuff, so that's fine. I talked myself up a little bit. I would be a horrible person if I did not give a shout out to the people that kind of put me where I am right now with what I do. Obviously, I shouted my wife out. My wife is amazing. But Adam Booker of Eastern Wrestling Alliance Maine, as I mentioned earlier, gave me my shot. Chase Del Monte, Scott from Rad Pro Wrestling, Randy Carver from Limitless Wrestling. And I'm not going to bother listing names of wrestlers, but every single one of them that gets excited when I show up to an event, that buys my work off of me for their own to then turn around and sell. Anyone that contributes to my business, endlessly thankful, man. So I want to make sure I give them a mention. As a creator who creates something that somebody else is going to turn around and sell, like this is the first time doing that venture for me. Like usually it's, hey, thanks for, you're thanking your fans, right?
Yeah.
And it's thanks for consuming my content and giving me your hard-earned money.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. And as content creators, we appreciate that. But now of course they're fans of my work. At least I hope they are. But they are also clients. Yep. So, and they are working really hard for their money. And they turn around and give some of that to me and for documenting what they're doing. So I would be totally amiss if I did not take the time to shout them out. So a huge thank you to all of them, to every single one of them that comes up to me and shakes my hand, says hi, welcomes me as part of the crew, as part of the wrestling family. As this 30+ year wrestling nerd, it means the world to me to be able to be this close to an industry that I've loved for so long.
Yeah.
So I had to make sure I got that out. Otherwise I would be an asshole.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. No, definitely shout out. Like I said, I always try to, like, that's what I do at the beginning of the show. I shout out all the people that that have kind of, started me into doing this. And like I said, you can't, I always say you can't do it alone. You think you can, but you always need like to collaborate somewhere and to make some connections along the way.
There's no such thing as a self-made man.
Oh yeah, definitely
or
not,
woman. No such thing.
Either or. Yeah, no, you definitely had some help along the way, or you still have that help. You still have a team around you that's helping you out. But that's another discussion for another day.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well.
No, I feel like, we were talking pre-show about how long the episode's going to be. And now I think you probably have a better understanding of when I said I did a 5.5 hour podcast. Like I think we maybe got to like half of the questions you had planned.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think we hit pretty much
covered a lot of it, but I think every question was like a half hour answer.
Yeah, I was watching. I was like, as you were talking, I'm like looking at the questions, like, oh, he answered that. So pretty much like hit everything. So like I said, you hit every mark. You did what you're supposed to do, and
well, I appreciate that. I try, man. I like it when podcasting is more conversational than checklist.
That's what I go through. Like I said, I give that to the guest. I'm giving my sauce right now, or my process. I give that to the guest to think about before we actually have the conversation.
Right.
But I'm not gonna like go, what about this and what about that? I'm gonna shoot up the question. You're gonna answer it, and then you're probably gonna answer another question within that question. So
right. Well, that's the beauty of having a podcaster on as a guest, right? Because like I've got that list of questions on my other monitor to my left here, so I can look over, and if I see that, like I've got my clock, I've got the questions, and if I see that like maybe an answer is getting a little long, I can segue it into the next question.
There you go.
So, and that's just it's time and know-how. Same with photography, man. It's skill. It's knowing the game. And we're kind of giving a little of that, how the sausage is made for podcasts.
Right.
But it's one of those things where when it feels organic and it's just a natural conversation that flows, not only is it better for the listener, because it does feel more like two friends having a conversation. But it's also more fun for us.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, like I said, that's the main sauce of this show is just, like I said, giving what I can as far as questions, but then, like I said, it's the first time I met you before, but
well, sure.
For the most part, it's like I never meet anyone like beforehand. It's right when we're doing the interview, it's either going to be a good show or it's going to be a bad show. But I don't think I've had a bad one yet. I think they've pretty much all been very conversational, and it's kind of like breaking the ice at the beginning, and then and we're talking wrestling, so like, and we're all wrestling fans, so it's an easy kind of
Of course.
I've done a few that weren't wrestling oriented. It was a different type of deal, but I was knowledgeable enough to talk in that realm, so I was
Right.
able to make a conversation. But like I said, I don't want to give away all the
No, for sure, man, for sure. And we could tangent off another one and make this go another 45 minutes.
I know, right? Jeez, yeah, we have to. Yeah, we're at a almost, like you said, 2-hour time limit.
Yeah,
we were at an hour time limit at first, but now we're going.
I think that's about what we expected.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, definitely. Like I said, it's great having you on. Hope to have you on again at some point.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun. This was good, man. I had a great time tonight, and I look forward to coming on again and hanging out some more.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you everyone for listening. If you're still listening, hopefully. If not, listen to the next show. If you fell asleep or something like that, if we bored you to death, just bring it back, listen to it over again. And no, I'm joking. But yeah, no, thanks everyone for listening. Whoever, if it's a one person listening, 10 people, 20 people, doesn't matter. As long as you're listening, I'm happy about it. And we'll talk to you soon. Later.